NFTs started to go mainstream in 2021. Today's video is going to talk about the differences between the environment then and the environment now when it comes to NFTs. So in 2021, NFTs had a lot of hype behind them because it was very novel technology. Think of it almost like websites in the early 2000s. And so during that time period, while it was more difficult to put together the actual code and the actual structure, the technological aspects, given many people had to do it from scratch, it was very easy to get funding for projects given most people were the first movers on a certain idea. And so when you have first mover advantage, it's typically going to have a positive effect on your business's performance. And many investors betted their money on that factor. Now, when it comes to 2024, we now have something that we didn't back in the day, and that is AI, ChatGPT. With AI becoming more mainstream and becoming more widely used, it's now a lot easier to be able to put together the tools and the constructs needed to execute on a specific idea. However, the more difficult part is going to be finding funding, finding capital to actually execute on the project. This is because many ideas now have gotten tested. So how does this actually impact founders, people who are creating? In the current environment, you're going to need to be a lot more strategic. It's not just about getting eyes on your project. You need to have a specific strategy that's going to encourage people to join into a project. And this sounds super broad, and it is broad because projects can be involved with anything from RWAs, like what we're building, to games online, like many people in the Web3 space are already working on. So there needs to be a strong strategy in getting people to support your project and your goals. And that's going to come down to collaboration. I think collaboration is the key to be able to successfully launch an NFT project. I remember during the 2021 days, when you had big names step in to back a project, it typically did a lot better than if those NFTs just launched individually. There was one in specific that I'm thinking of. It was a Solana NFT project that was backed by Michael Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. And this NFT, it was damn, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It had like a bull image. I may throw something up in the editing section of the video if I find it, but essentially Michael Jordan put his name behind it. NFT collection not only sold out, but the floor price doubled. It actually may have gone even higher. It may have tripled for a while. Obviously, the majority of NFT projects fell off quite heavily when the crypto market started to fall. But what I'm trying to say is people who partnered with industry experts or the top of their field, typically those projects did very well compared to the average everyday NFT collection that was released. And so, regardless of what space you're looking to move into, especially if you don't have a lot of credibility in the space already, you're going to want to partner with people who have a reputable brand that people already trust and people are already drawn to. Now, to be able to partner with people who have these brands, you do need to bring something to the table. And because it's much easier to build the technological aspects of what makes an NFT collection successful today, you are going to need to have some sort of, um, I don't know, not edge, but like there needs to be some type of approach. Given a lot of these contracts, I mean, if you just want to pull a basic NFT 721 contract, you can just go on Remix's cookbook and be able to get it for free. So the best way, and this is me talking before having done it myself, next year is when we'll be having some more credibility as far as actually having executed on this. But what I'm thinking is the best way to partner with people who already have brands and reputations is going to be able to build your own brand and reputation. Social media networks themselves are a very valuable asset, and that's why people can make such crazy money online nowadays. I mean, there's OnlyFans models making more than NFL players. So it comes down to your audience and how valuable that audience is to a specific person. So ideally, we need to really focus on building a brand and building a presence online that's recognizable to the NFT, to the Web3 community. And I understand the best spaces for this are going to be places like Twitter, Discord, and Instagram. So that's going to come down to having content readily available and constantly being rolled out. And that's part of the reason why we had started filming a few months early to entering 2025. The goal is to get a lot of films stacked up. So when we're rolling into 2025, we can just go in, start to clip up the best parts of each video and start posting those onto a channel. So that's something we need to get on. But honestly, from what I've noticed, when it comes to posts and growing an online channel, I remember noticing my Twitter account grew substantially larger once I started joining into spaces, which spaces are pretty much just a place where you can go and speak live to other people on the platform. There's no video involved. It's kind of like Clubhouse, if you guys remember that. And so joining those spaces and being an active speaker, an active participant, that allowed me to grow my following based on other people who had listened to the host, hearing me talk and being like, I like this kid's points. Let me see what it's about. So That's a form of collaboration and content together is what I would imagine builds your brand. You need to have content rolling out constantly that is getting people familiar with your face, with your message, with your brand, with what you're about. But at the same time, you need collaboration to be able to leverage other people's networks and get in front of new people and new eyes. Plus, think of it this way, if you were a business owner and you had a bunch of people cold calling you, you may not give them the same amount of attention as if you had, one of your friends who also owns a business refer somebody and say, hey, this guy John, he's starting a startup. It's really cool. You should check it out. You're going to be more likely to actually give John your time and your attention rather than if John just cold called you out of the blue. So it's the same thing when it comes to followers and growing a brand. By leveraging other people's networks, it's almost like getting that referral, that invitation from somebody that you already know. So I do want to definitely get some um some collaborative efforts in motion. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that this month or if I should just wait until the end of January when we're rolling into the uh the time that I'm really planning to push myself. I think numerology is super useful, and anybody who doesn't probably hasn't studied or they've studied people who aren't the expert in their fields. Gary the Numbers guy, he's by far the top guy when it comes to numerology and astrology. And people who push themselves at certain times tend to do better if they time it properly. I'll give you some examples. Tom Brady is born in 1977, year of the snake. He wasn't even a starter on the field in 2001, but he ended up getting his shot that year and he completely capitalized on it to allow him to break out, become one of the best in his field, and he's by far going to go down as one of the top Hall of Famers of all time. Kanye West, born 1977, year of the snake. He got his opportunity with Jay-Z on the Blueprint in 2001. And so while both Tom Brady and Kanye West had obviously started their careers, started preparing beforehand, they had opportunities fall in place in the same energy year as when they were born. 2001's Year of the Snake, 1977's Year of the Snake. So I'm born 2001, and 2025, after January 28th, is going to be the Year of the Snake because it's on a lunar cycle. So that's why I'm waiting till that time, just some insight. I will most likely have a channel that has more evidence and not just evidence, but like breaking down examples that you guys can see so you can start to learn how you can actually utilize this. Because when you start to use this on a business sense, that's when you can start getting a very strong edge. Steve Jobs took a trip to India before releasing on many of his Apple products. And one of his first presentations he had with the iPad, the only book that he had downloaded on the iPad was a book from an Indian yogi. So we believe that Steve Jobs had traveled to India to learn about numerology and astrology because he used this information. I've broken this down before on a video. It was one of the earlier videos, but if you look for the keyword numerology, you should be able to find it. Without making this a numerology video, though, that is kind of my reasoning behind whether or not we're going to wait to do certain things in the next year, in the next couple months, really. But what I'm going at is collaborative efforts that we're able to leverage content with is going to be crucial for building a social media brand and ultimately just a brand overall within the Web3 space. So spaces by far are definitely a very useful tool given many people in the Web3 space are interacting with each other on Twitter. Podcasts is another great one, which podcasts I want to leverage, especially for gaining awareness on projects that we're going to do on a large scale, just because we can clip those up, we can put those out on different social media, and allows us to leverage various platforms off of one single recording. So spaces, podcast, and then live events would probably be the other. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, and obviously I'm not an expert at building a brand yet, but live events is going to allow us to meet people in person, discuss ideas on a face-to-face level, and ultimately that would be useful for finding partners that we'd want to work with within the space, for finding partners that we want to work with in different industries that we can leverage next year when we're starting to build some of these acquisition pools. Now, the last one that I have noticed some people have used to build their brands is doing video reviews. Now, we all watch content. I probably spend too much time on my phone, like many of you guys could probably relate, but I've noticed creators will either stream or record themselves watching a piece of content and then give their insight and viewpoints on what they had just watched. So that's a way that we could utilize the time that we're already spending looking at other people's content to be able to create our own content. And again, being able to leverage other people's brands and other people's ideas to help build our own. So these are just some insights as far as my thoughts for how we're going to go about building the brand. Because ideally, if I'm going to start targeting people like, the guy who runs the School of Hard Knocks, or other people who have networks of entrepreneurs or networks of people involved in the Web3 space, I'm going to want to be able to come with a network of my own that I can leverage and say, hey, let's work together. You can use my network, I can use yours. So we've definitely got some stuff to do. I need to honestly figure out a good setup for recording some of the content that I just talked about, reviewing other people's content. And then secondly, I am going to need to figure out some better quality equipment for actually doing some recordings because we've been doing this on Zoom through my laptop a lot, and this is good for getting the reps, getting good at talking, getting good at speaking. However, the video quality ain't all that great. I've had people comment that. So it's like, I get it, and I know I got to fix it, but we're obviously working with what we've got for now. So spaces will definitely be one of the most immediate things we can implement. Getting a setup for recording reviews on other people's content would be next. Setting up some podcasts would be definitely on the to-do list. And then finally doing some in-person events, starting to get to network out in the public. That is going to help with building some strong connections as far as business partners. So that's what we'll be working on going into the next year. But with that being said, I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.